Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining the Column EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We are happy to have our friend, Steve Burke, join us this morning. Steve wears several hats and has a really illustrious background. Steve serves as a port commissioner with me, but in this capacity and for his presentation today, he is going to be talking about the Shore Aquatic Center that is located in Port Angeles and just went, not just, but a few years ago, they passed a bond and had a major renovation that he was behind that. And now he is in charge of expanding again into more childcare. So I know that Steve takes care of a lot of kids after school, so he's going to be talking about that and just the services that they as a metropolitan park district provide for the city of Port Angeles and the surrounding area. So Steve, with that, one other thing, if you want to ask him any questions, feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you. Or alternatively, if you just prefer to put your question in the chat, we can read the question for you to Steve. All right, go ahead, Steve, take it away. And thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a long time since I've updated the EDC. I used to be on the EDC board, but when Colleen took over, we weren't allowed to be on the in the same room together because we would have quorum for the port. So
Right.
I had to
Not
step
because
down.
not because we'd fight or punch each other or anything, just
But I really appreciate this opportunity. I thought I'm going to share here. Hopefully this works. And what I'd like to do is kind of, since I haven't done a presentation about us for quite a while, at least let people know kind of where we came from. Why do we have this crazy nice aquatic center in our town? And why does it do childcare? Because that's kind of an odd thing. And so I wanted to just give a little bit of background related to that. Let me hit. Oh, sorry. When you're a pool guy, technology isn't necessarily your first skill set. So back in 1961, the city of Port Angeles built their first indoor swimming pool. They used to have in the parking lot of the courthouse, to the east of the courthouse, used to be a outdoor swimming pool, and there was a school across the street, kind of where Vern Burton and City Hall is. And that was their first pool they had prior to 1961. In 61, they decided to build an indoor pool. So they built it next to where they will eventually build City Hall. And that opened in 1961. And the city ran that pool till 2008. And everybody knows 2008 was the time that financially municipalities were struggling and trying to par down their budget. And so the city was in that boat. And so they decided one way they could do that was close down their pool. And so in 2008, the council wanted to close down the pool, and they got a little bit more feedback from the public than they thought they would. And for whatever reason, our community has always been highly invested in having an aquatic center. And they became very vocal, formed a committee to try to save the pool, with the help of a couple city council people and Mike Chapin as the county commissioner back then. Were able to develop a plan to form a metropolitan park district and to put the pool inside that park district. That's why we kind of say we're a pool district, because all we have is a pool. We don't really have parks. And so they were able to put that on the ballot, and that ballot measure passed by 68%. If any of you have ever done a ballot initiative, passing by 68% means your community really, really wants that.
And
And
you only had to do 50%, is that right?
yeah, 50%, 50 plus one,
Okay, yeah.
would have formed the district, but it passed by 68%. The Save the Pool Committee just did an amazing, fantastic job on, prior to the election, excuse me, to get the word out. I mean, you couldn't drive a block without seeing a sign about saving the pool. And in the end of the day, saving the pool means doing swim lessons, which means that as water safety for kids. And that was the thrust of why they wanted to save the pool. So in that passed in May of 2009. In June, the city said, here's the keys, enjoy the pool. And in June, they got to take over the pool. And it was kind of one of those, holy cow, now what do we do? We saved the pool, now we have to run it. And so, one too many. And so they hired me. My background is I grew up in San Diego, where I was in a family that ran and built commercial pools. And
That? Huh.
yep. And so after college, I did a career in federal law enforcement. And if you know anything about, I worked for DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Administration. That qualifies you for nothing after you retire. So what do you kind of go back to? You go back to what you did before that, which was I did pools. So it was a good fit. And down in San Diego, you could throw a stick in any direction and find somebody who knows about pools. Up here, I learned that's not the case. There's not a lot of people that know how to run and operate pools. And so it was a good fit. So I did my career already. So I was just wanting to help where I could. And so we took over in 2009, and kind of for the next 10 years, we tried to make it as good as we could get it. The analogy I used is we were given a very old used car and told we had to drive it around a lot. And so we fixed up that used car as much as we could, and we drove it as hard as we could for as long as we could, and try to do the programming that people wanted. And as a result of that, our attendance and programming revenue grew. It grew about 185% over, not quite the 10 years, but about eight years. It grew by about 185%. And we were starting to experience where we couldn't fit any more people into the pool. It was just getting too crowded, too compacted. The classes we were offering were getting full and lots of waiting lists. And so in 2016, the board, which for our Metropolitan Park District, our board is 2 city council people from the city of Port Angeles, 2 county commissioners, and then they add 1 citizen at large. And so that board approved expanding the facility to what we have today. And we took that to the voters, and that actually passed by 73%. So if
Wow.
you ever put a levy ask on the ballot and someone says 73%, you pass by 73%, I think it's a record. I don't know of anybody who's passed higher than that, at least that I've ever found. And so our community really wanted it. And what's nice about that as well is when you go to your legislator and ask for money, and you said your community passed it by 73%, they tend to listen because they know that community as a whole is behind that project. And so we set out in 2019. Oh, wrong way. Sorry. In 2019, we closed down for a little over a year and a half to do this project. In 2020, we finished our $20 million expansion renovation project. And we actually came in $1 million under budget. And we did this project during COVID, which I highly recommend not doing projects during pandemics. It tends to complicate them and get them to be very expensive. But we timed it pretty well in terms of most of our equipment was already ordered before the pandemic fully hit. And so we are very fortunate. Since then, in our first full year of open, which was in 21, we doubled in size. And the next year we grew by an additional 80%. And this last year we grew by about another 20%.
With
So it's
members? Do you mean grew as in members?
both members and revenue.
Okay, got it.
So we kind of have two pots of money. We have what we call program revenue, which is all the stuff that we charge for, swim lessons, entrance, childcare, all those kind of things. And then we do have a tax levy that we receive as well, because aquatic centers do not hold their own. You could never charge enough for an aquatic center to be able to recover its costs.
They're like
Which is
airports.
why I'm sorry?
They're like airports then.
Yes. Yes, very much so. And that's why communities, when they get into financial positions, shut down pools, because they're always usually a loss leader. You can do an outdoor pool in a warmer climate and do well all day long. But indoor pools are not the case. And so our revenue and attendance, we went from we have general admission, but we also have memberships. Our memberships went from about 2,000 when we closed down for expansion. And now I think we have between 8,000 and 9,000 members. And that's quite a bit in a town of 20,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, hey, Steve, how were you able to come in $1 million under budget?
well, because we're very small, and we had this one chance of doing this project and we couldn't screw it up. I did carry a fairly heavy contingency number. And so mostly what we did is we lived within our budget and didn't have to use a lot of the contingency.
What percentage of the budget was contingencies?
By the time we got to the actual project starting, I think I was carrying about 5%.
That's not that much.
It's a little, you try to get around 3, and we went to 5.
But when someone does a budget for a capital project, don't they usually have 10, or I've even seen 30% contingency?
Yeah, when you start a project and you're in the design phase, you'll generally start during design at least 30%. And then as that design gets flushed out over time, that contingency gets rolled into the actual budget.
So was this a design bid build, or was it, how'd you do it?
So we did this project because our biggest risk and fear was cost overruns and change orders. And so we did this project with a pure procurement that's called GCCM, which is General Contractor Contract Management, where you actually select your contractor prior to finishing your design, and they actually work along with you in the design to to make sure that what you've designed can be built economically.
Okay.
And so that's the process we use. It's a complicated process and quite a few hoops you have to jump through. But once you're in construction, it's a fantastic project to control costs.
Okay.
And so we did that and it worked really well for us. It's not for everybody and it's not for every project, but it worked really good for our project.
Mhm.
And so we're, you know, anytime you drive by the pool now, you'll usually see our parking lot pretty full. We built on the far east side. We built a childcare facility that houses about 85 kids. And so we have 85 kids in our after school program. We have a wait list that is too long and people are on it too long as well. Um, and we everybody, you know, if you're going to do childcare, doing it at a pool is a great option because we can wear them out. And we actually started childcare prior to doing our expansion, but it was a struggle because we didn't have any dedicated space. And we learned very quickly you can't just shove the kids in the water for like 4 hours straight because they come out all wrinkly. But they get really tired, which is awesome. And the parents love that because they go home absolutely exhausted. But we're like, okay, we can't just shove them in the pool for 4 hours. And so we created, you know, during our expansion project, we created some dedicated space for them so they can do homework and and we did a little bit of a playground. And so we're kind of expanding on that. Um, and
So, Steve, what ages kids are in the after school program? You said there's 85 of them,
yeah,
but
so we
what?
go from kindergarten through fifth grade.
Okay.
Generally, you go to age 12 because at age
Okay.
12, your child can stay home without a parent. And so that becomes the go-to option for families uh, when when they hit age 12 because childcare is just expensive.
Hmm.
And so if they can stay home by themselves, that's what they do.
How much
Uh,
do you charge per kid for the after school program?
oh, you would ask me that. I don't know. I think it's around $20 a day, $25 a day.
Wow. Yeah, that's not inexpensive.
No, no, it's not. And we're probably the cheapest around.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think there's anybody lower than us, at least in a commercial setting. You know, homes sometimes can, you know, where they're doing just a couple kids.
Mhm.
But it's a great program. But what we learned is there was a huge need. A couple of the other things that we added to, we did a room that was kind of a multi-purpose room, and we do birthday parties there. And we did last year, we did $50,000 worth of birthday parties,
Wow.
which is crazy. But we're the most economical option for group birthday parties in our community.
Hmm.
And so we do a lot of birthday parties every week. During the summer, we'll do even more of them because we can do them during the week because kids don't have school the next day. And
Mhm.
it's a great economical option if you want to have a kid's birthday party. We do everything from here's the room, you take care of everything else, to we have a package where all you do is show up and we do everything for you.
What's the cost to rent the birthday space?
It varies for how much. If you just want the room and you do everything, it's less expensive. I think it's around $50 or $60, but you also get 10 admissions, or I think 15 admissions with it. And then
Mhm.
it gets more expensive to several $100s if you want us to provide everything, birthday cakes, party favors, everything.
A
We,
clown, a
yeah,
bald clown?
yep, I show up and do my thing, and not really, but we have themes, we have all different kinds of theme parties that you can do and select from. And we also do swim lessons. I mean, one of our core missions is water safety. And so we provide swim lessons. I don't think we're, when I took over the pool, swim lessons were about $44 for a session. And I think we're still under $50 for a swim lesson session.
Wow. One session, one day is
Well,
50
no,
bucks.
no, for a month.
Oh,
So
okay.
you'll go 2 to 3 times a week for a month.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, yeah, no, that would be a little expensive.
Yeah.
Uh,
What
so, so,
what percentage of your revenues come from the property taxes that you receive as a metropolitan park district?
we get about 1.4 million. So a rough gauge is about half for if you took all our expenses, including our debt. So, we have $1 million debt payment every year for this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you took all those expenses, through program revenue, we cover about half of it, and the property taxes cover the other half of all of our expenses. Which,
Okay.
if you look at park and recreation, that is a really, really good percentage. Usually, cost recovery is somewhere around 20%, and we're
Mm-hmm.
at 50%.
Yeah.
And
So
so we're doing really
when will
well, but we still can't hold our own without tax
yeah,
levy.
when will you have the bond paid off?
Some of it will be paid off in 6 years, and then we did some 10-year bonding, and then we also did some 20-year bonding because we had to get that payment down, and the only way to do that was to push it out to 20-year mark.
Do you envision you'll ever lower your property taxes once you get the bond paid off? Or no, are you going
Oh,
to try to build up
I
reserves for the next repair?
I mean, I think it'll be a little bit of both. I mean,
Okay.
we spent a lot of years not taking our full amount because we weren't ready to do our expansion. And I mean, that's really not my call, but the board's call. But I
Yeah.
could see a combination of both.
All
Uh,
right.
what we were able to do is that $1 million that we were able to save from the project, we rolled that into a reserve fund. And so we have that as our reserve for the future. Generally, aquatic centers need an overhaul about every 25 years.
Mm,
So we'll still have some time after we pay everything off before we'd have to do, a major overhaul.
mm-hmm. Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. And so here you can see where we started back in 2009, where our expansion project, was completed, and then this skyrocketing of use. Um, that's just, I think we're now finally, after 3 years, starting to stabilize our growth where we're not getting these double-digit growths. So
Mhm.
I think we've reached kind of equilibrium in terms of users. So because we didn't know what the use would be for something that our community really never had before.
Mhm. Do
Want
you
to talk
ever
a little bit
reach
about, I'm sorry.
maximum? Do you ever reach maximum capacity? Like you have to tell people, sorry, we got too many kids here, too many people here. And what is the
Uh,
maximum capacity?
no, not really. Where we do reach maximum capacity is a lot of our classes. So we
Mhm.
do a lot of exercise, balance, stability classes, and they fill up. to
Mhm.
maximum almost always. And then we've also added a lot of what we call dry land classes. So we do a lot of yoga, Pilates, stretching, and a lot of we kind of brought over the instructors from Poser. Um, when they shut down, they kind of came over, and so we're doing a lot of yoga and Pilates uh, at our place now, which is new to us, but very popular. Wanted to touch a little bit on the future of what we're doing because we don't have to build or renovate our aquatic center. Probably our biggest issue is we just don't have enough childcare. That's an issue for us and our community. Uh, I think you guys were able to put a number on it. We're probably at least 300 slots shy of where our community needs to be. And I would say that's probably a low number, but a good number to use. Uh, so a couple years ago, the school district moved over to the Lincoln Center and put the building next door to us for sale. And we looked at it for expansion, but we couldn't afford it at the time. And so Olympic Medical Center bought it to expand some of their office space that they needed. They needed to get non-medical stuff away from the hospital because of the billing rules. And since then, the billing rules have changed, so that hadn't been as much of a concern. And then with their financial issues, they've decided that right now using that building isn't in the cards. And so they approached us if we wanted to use it for childcare. And we were very excited about that. It's about an 8,000 square foot building, which you can't really, it's surprising when you look at it from the outside that it's that big, but it's 2 full floors. And so we decided to see if we could do that. And in November of last year, we got a commerce grant, a 2-year commerce grant for about 170,000 to look at is a planning grant essentially to look at. For us, it would be, can we use this building to expand childcare for our community, and what type of childcare should we expand? You know, is it infant? Is it preschool? Is it after school care? Is it subsidized, non-subsidized? And so we got this grant to start that process. And so we're right in the middle of it. Uh, we're actually, you'll start seeing it hopefully in your emails. We've got a survey going out that started last week um, to find what the needs are in our community. And so it's going out to a lot of employers to try to get feedback from their employees of what they need. Uh, we've kind of decided the YMCA is also doing a project to expand childcare, and we've met with them, and they are going to focus on the infant care. And so we're not going to focus on that. So we're looking at doing preschool, but just not infant preschool. And so that's a tough nut to crack, the infant care. And so the YMCA is going to take that on. Uh, in March of this year, and I don't know if they've signed it even yet, but the capital budget, we were able to secure 750,000 to do the renovation of the facility in order to do childcare well. It was kind of some kind of chopped up office space, and that didn't necessarily work for childcare. So we were able to get a grant. Uh, we're still in the planning phase, so some of these numbers may change a little bit, but it looks like we'll be able to expand our after school care between 80 and 100 slots. And that will, one whole floor of that will just be after school care. And we'll also, on the top floor, we'll be adding preschool. Hopefully we'll add that in the spring. We were hoping to get the after school care up and going this fall. It's a pretty aggressive timeline, but gotta shoot for aspirational goals. So that's ours, and it works best for families if you can do it during the school calendar. So that's what we're trying to do. And so that's kind of what we're doing future wise, is really focusing on expanding a quality childcare program. One of the advantages for after school programs that we do is if you want your child to do swim lessons, we'll take care of that while they're here. And so it saves some families some time. They still get charged for it, so it's not necessarily a cost savings, but it is a time savings. And not in we currently we do a 4 hour preschool, part-time preschool, and it's nice having it at an aquatic center because we can get them in swimming and exercising and playing around. So it seems odd that an aquatic center does childcare, but it actually works really well together. And
Mhm.
so our goal this year will be to expanding that program and hopefully, you know, trying to get us out of that childcare desert that we
Yeah.
seem to be stuck in.
So, Pat McCauley asked, are you working with the Boys and Girls Club?
We have not talked with them yet. But that is a great conversation for us to have, is with Boys and Girls Club. I do know during the summers they use our pool. But that is a great, I think we need to have that conversation. So that's a great idea.
Mhm. And so Rebecca said earlier, I missed it, Steve isn't telling my favorite part of the story, moving a building to make way for the pool and the bird nest that went with it.
Yes. So Peninsula Behavioral Health, where our parking lot is currently, used to have a building there. And part of our agreement was to get, because that wasn't our property. It was the county's property, and behavioral health had a building on it. For us to get that, we needed to move that building to a new place. And so we moved it up to 8th Street, which I've never moved a building before. And I would recommend never moving a building. It is not cheap or easy. And so we moved it up to 8th Street and had to shut 8th Street down for a while. And of course, somebody parked a car right where we had to roll the building on 8th Street. And so we found a forklift and lifted the car and moved it and then put it back afterwards. I don't think they ever knew that we actually moved their car. But we
And
were
you didn't
closing 8th
damage it?
Street down, so we had to do something.
And you didn't damage the car.
No. It was fine, and everything worked. And so behavioral health program building is right next to the it's really close to their existing building now, which is nice.
So, but what about the bird nest?
I have no idea about the bird nest.
Oh, come on, Steve. It was it's Rebecca. There was a nest obviously on the building that got moved. And so as that building was getting moved up those couple of blocks, the parental unit birds were followed it
Oh, that's right.
all the way around to 8.
Yep, they followed the house around.
Yep.
See, that
They
was
were
such
like,
a
where are my
traumatic
babies
time.
going?
That was a traumatic time in my life, so I blocked it all out. So I don't remember anything.
So, and Rebecca wrote, or the dog swimming party.
Yes, so when we closed the pool down prior to our expansion renovation, we had an evening while we were draining the pool that you could just bring your dogs and play in the pool.
That's
And
great.
that was absolute chaos.
I bet.
And we were finding dog hair for a while after that.
I bet. And then Matt said, isn't the YMCA putting a new childcare facility close to the aquatic center?
It's actually really close to where it's across the street from where the Y building in Port Angeles is. So it's just west of their existing building across the street. And
So
yes,
what's
they are
that's
doing
about a
that.
mile away?
Yeah, it's probably a mile, maybe a little bit less than that.
Okay. And they're focused on young, so 0 to 5 year olds,
Yes.
and their project is a $6 million project. Is that right?
Yeah, they're actually having to either move or demolish a couple homes, old homes like that aren't able to be occupied to make room for the building that will be their child care facility.
And so, I mean, it is different because they're taking care of younger kids, but how many kids are they, children, infants, toddlers, are they going to be supporting?
I think they're going to be just under 100.
Okay. Okay. And so just interesting comparison, but they're building new. And so that's $6 million and just under 100. So it's about $60,000 per child. And your budget, because you got the building for $1 a year for 10 years, and your budget is 750,000.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
And how many kids?
Yeah, and so ours is a lot less. One is we're going to self-perform a lot of the work. So we're going to actually do a lot of the work ourselves, which makes it a lot less expensive. And we're allowed to do that. Not all places are allowed to do that. We are, and we have an existing building that's close to
Right.
what we need.
And so how many kids are you going to be serving?
We're going to expand somewhere around 150, 160 total kids.
Okay, so if it's 150 kids, that's $5,000 per child versus the 60,000. So you really found a skinny way to take care of the problem. Good for you.
Yes, and that's why Theringer gave us what we had, because from a slot cost per slot, that was a great deal for him. And
Yeah,
so, which is why he was generous enough to give us some money. Now we just gotta actually, get it
do it.
done.
Yeah, yeah.
And our biggest cost, I mean, we could do it for less than that. Our biggest cost is we have to put sprinklers in the building, and that's 200,000 right there. So 200,000 is just sprinklers.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you anticipate having to hire additional childcare staff to facilitate that expansion?
Yes, and quite a few. And so how that'll probably look is we're not going to be able to necessarily open to our full capacity immediately. We'll have to probably ladder that, where we open up 10 slots at a time to make sure that we're staffed appropriately.
And
Makes
so
sense.
you're not going to be licensed because you don't have to, or are you still evaluating whether you'll convert to being licensed so you can get the subsidies that the state offers?
Yeah, and so we're looking at that. Currently, because we're a governmental entity, we're what they call license exempt. So governmental entities, tribes, are not required to be licensed to provide childcare services. So we fall under that license exempt. The downside of that is we cannot accept subsidies. So if you qualify for subsidies for childcare, we are not allowed to accept those subsidies. And that is a significant downside. And so we're looking at kind of a hybrid model where our preschool is probably licensed and can accept subsidies, and our after school care maybe will stay the same and be license exempt. We're not entirely sure of how a blend of that would look.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're working with Marie Keller from Imagine Institute?
Yeah, so she's our consultant, the childcare guru,
Yeah.
and on going through that. It's interesting because we don't accept childcare. We do a lot of grants, so we kind of fund our own kind of grant program for families, so it can be more affordable. And so if we went to licensed and accepted subsidies, it really doesn't affect what we charge or the revenue we receive, because we self-fund some of our own discounts now, and we wouldn't have to do that if we went to subsidized.
And subsidized, it came about through the Safe Start for Kids Act, which basically is funded through capital gains taxes. And that, depending on your family's income and the number of kids you have, it subsidizes the cost on average at about 84% subsidy. Is that right?
Yeah, it really flexes depending on how many kids you have and what the income is. And it's surprising how many people think they're not qualified, but they can be. I mean, up to what Marie said was just under 100,000 a year total family income can qualify for some type of subsidy, which is a lot higher than people realize.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't know what this will look like next year if we lose the capital gains tax. I from what people explained to me, it probably won't affect the subsidy program, but it is going to affect the grant programs that are being used to do advanced planning, capital projects, all those kind of things. All those will probably all go away.
Okay.
But
Got it.
probably the subsidy program won't be as in jeopardy.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think I've covered all of my questions. Does anyone else have any questions for Steve? All right. Well, not hearing any, I think we'll give you guys 13 minutes back of your morning. And Steve, just really appreciate you sharing the story about Shore Aquatic Center. I think it's an incredible success, and we're really lucky to have your leadership in the community. And I sure enjoy working with you day in and day out.
Well, this is a great community. And one of the things that I enjoy so much about our community is if you help in any fashion, volunteer or public service or anything, and you put some effort in, you actually see it. You know, in bigger towns, you don't necessarily see that effort, but in our size community, if you put some effort in, you get to see the benefit, which is amazing.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And this recording will be posted on our website later today. If Steve, you wanted to share with anyone, or you know, somebody's wants to watch it later, it'll be available.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks, Colleen.
So Colleen,
Thank you. Yes.
Steve mentioned moving buildings. Currently, there is not a building mover in our community. Monroe